Hello students. The topic for today's discussion is coalition politics and party system in India. The objective behind today's discussion is to give you an insight and understanding into the nature of coalition politics in India, the reasons behind the shift from one dominant party system to multi-party coalitions in India, as well as the impact of coalition politics on Indian parliamentary system. For the convenience of understanding, the entire discussion is divided into a number of segments. We will start with the concept of coalition government and the features of coalitions. Then we would move on to the nature of different coalitions formed in India from 1977 onwards. Next, the impact of coalitions and a study of the two most important coalitions in India, UPA and NDA. And finally, we will try to understand how coalition governments have impacted the federal nature of Indian polity. Let us start with what is a coalition government and when do we find coalition governments formed. When several political parties collaborate to form a government and exercise political power on the basis of some common agreed program of policies, it is said to be a coalition government. The main reason for the formation of coalition governments is when no single party is able to win an absolute majority in the popular house, and then a number of parties come together and form a workable majority to run the government. This is a part of multi-party federal system. What are the features of coalition governments? Firstly, coalition is a collaborative cooperative effort in which some political parties come together to exercise political power. It may be based on a pre-poll or a post-poll alliance. Secondly, a coalition government is organized by two or more than two political parties. Thirdly, at times some political parties form a pre-poll alliance and contest the elections collectively by fielding common candidates in some constituencies. After getting a majority in the elections, the coalition partners collectively form a government. For example, in the recently held West Bengal Legislative Assembly elections in April 2021, the left parties and the INC had formed a pre-poll alliance. Fourthly, at times when no party is in a position to get a majority, some parties form a coalition to organize a government. The coalition partners share the exercise of power at the union or in the state level. Fifthly, before or after organizing a coalition government, the coalition partners prepare a common program which incorporates a set of mutually agreed policies and principles. The exercise of power is undertaken by implementing the agreed policies and programs. In case the coalition alliance or group is organized before the elections, a common minimum program is prepared, which may be a part of the common electoral manifesto. For example, the Common Minimum Program, the CMP, was the manifesto of the Congress UPA alliance. Sixthly, the coalition group or alliance either elect or select a coalition leader in advance or elect a leader of the coalition after the elections. The coalition government is organized under the leadership of such a person. Seventhly, coalition government is always based upon a compromise or agreement. In decision making, all the coalition partners try to practice decision making by consensus building. Each coalition partner has to accommodate the wishes, aspirations, desires of other coalition partners. Now, let us try to understand the nature of coalition politics in India since independence. Now, we find that after independence, the Indian National Congress has contested the 5 Lok Sabha elections, that is 1952, 57, 62, 67 and 1971 elections under the dominating influence of Jawaharlal Nehru and Mrs. Indira Gandhi. The 6th Lok Sabha elections was unique. In one stroke, the Indian electorate brought down 30 years of Congress dominance in the country. The year 1967 is considered to be a landmark in India's electoral and political history. After 1967, a systematic change involving both societal processes and organization manifestation of this change was the breakdown of the one-party dominant system at the center and the replacement by multi-party coalition. 1967 marks a change in Indian politics which led to the change of the character of the party system then obtaining in India. Opposition parties were at the forefront of organizing public protest and pressurizing the government. Parties opposed to the Congress realized that the division of their votes kept the Congress in power. Thus, parties that were entirely different and disparate in their programs and ideologies came together to form anti-Congress fronts in some states and entered into electoral adjustments of sharing seats in others. Let us try to understand the first coalition government from 1977 to 1979. The history of coalition in India can be identified with the Janata Party-led coalition from 1977 to 1979, which brought for the first time a group of non-Congress parties to power at the center. This was a very historic moment for opposition parties which succeeded in providing an alternative to the Congress rule in India. The Janata Party captured 295 seats out of 540. The main constituents of the Janata Party was the Congress O organization, Congress D for Democracy, Bharatiya Lok Dal and Bharatiya Jan Sangh. Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister, but that did not bring the power struggle within the coalition to an end. The Janata Party split and the government, which was led by Morarji Desai, lost in majority in less than 18 months. The second coalition government was headed by Chaudhry Charan Singh. It was formed on the assurance provided by Congress. The Congress provided outside support to Chaudhry Charan Singh. But the Congress later withdrew its support with the result that the Chaudhry Charan Singh government could remain in power just for about 4 months. The first coalition experiment failed to complete the full tenure of 5 years, primarily because of egoistic clashes between the three main leaders. They were Morarji Desai, Chaudhry Charan Singh, Jagjeevan Ram. Along with this, there was the problem of defection and ideological differences. The failure of the Janata Party brought to the fore the importance of better coordination in coalition governments. But the main significance of the 1977 elections was that it introduced for the first time in India the idea of coalitional government. The collapse of the Janata government led to the comeback of the Indian National Congress with tremendous majority during 1980 to 1989. But the 9th general election of 1989 situation changed dramatically in favor of another coalition government at the center. The National Front Coalition of 1989. In 1989, another coalition was formed which was called the National Front Coalition, consisting of the Janata Dal, Telugu Desam Party, DMK, Assam Gana Parishad. The BJP and the left parties supported the National Front government. However, it was better organized than the Janata Dal coalition of 1977, but there were some inherent contradictions within this National Front coalition. Now let us come to the features of the National Front coalition. The National Front was based on a pre-election non-congressional coalition building exercise through a common minimum program, the main planks of which were peasant and rural populism of the Janata Dal, parliamentary and federal communism of the left-wing parties, and linguistic and religious sub-nationalism of the regional parties which were partners of the National Front. The front campaigned without any pre-announced prime ministerial candidate, although there was a galaxy of leaders, very popular. The most important were Chandrasekhar, VP Singh, Jyoti Basu, NT Rama Rao, Devi Lal and many others. VP Singh was finally chosen as the Prime Minister by the National Front Parliamentary Group. However, he proved to be impulsive and unilateralist for Devi Lal and Chandrasekhar. This National Front coalition experiment could only last for about 18 months. Its rule was characterized by inefficiency, instability due to the presence of a strong difference among the coalition partners. The split-up group of the Janata Dal, led by Chandrasekhar, with 54 members in the Lok Sabha, formed the next coalition on 10th November 1990 with outside support of Congress I. It was also an unstable government which could not last beyond 6 months. In 1991, no party was able to form a stable majority. The Congress got 225 seats and emerged as the single largest party. The BJP came second with 119 seats. However, when no party was in a position to form a government, or a coalition of political parties were also not in a position to form a coalition government, Congress-led minority government under the leadership of P.V. Narasimha Rao came to power. This was a period of major political changes in the country, with the country going in for reforms and liberalization. The P.V. Narasimha Rao-led 1991 government could complete 5 years in office at the centre. The next phase of coalition politics started with the United Front coalition from 1996. This was a new phase of coalition in India. In the 1996, the BJP emerged as the single largest party with 161 Lok Sabha seats, and the Congress came second with 140 seats. The President invited the BJP to form a government, which was done. But the Vajpayee-led government could only last for 13 days. After the resignation, the BJP government on 28th May 1996 resigned, and the next government came to power, which was the United Front government, which staked its claim to form a coalition government. Several political parties partnered with the United Front government in order to keep the BJP out of the fray. Some of the coalition partners were the Janata Dal, the CPM, the Congress Tiwari Group, DMK, TDP, TMC. Muslim League organized a united front and elected Sri H.D. Deve Gowda as its leader. It also prepared a common minimum program. The Congress decided to extend its support from outside. Consequently, the United Front formed government at the centre, and this was a coalition government. Interestingly, it should be said at this point that many of the political parties which formed this coalition had fought the elections against each other, but they formed this coalition as partners. The CPI joined the government while the CPIM decided to provide external support. The United Front government of Deve Gowda could last for about a year, and during this period it tried to implement a number of policies and programs which were a part of the common minimum program. However, dependence upon the Congress support and due to some internal contradictions, it could not work very effectively. In April 1997, it had to be replaced by the second United Front government under the Prime Ministership of I.K. Gujral. The second United Front government was again a coalition government, and it depended upon Congress support. It could work smoothly for only 6 months, and after the withdrawal of support by the Congress in November 1998, it became a caretaker government. It should be noted that both Deve Gowda and I.K. Gujral were highly reconciliatory, accommodative of coalitional pressures and pulls. But despite their accommodative stance, they could not complete 5 years in office. 1998 offers a change from the earlier coalition building exercises. During June 1996 to March 1998, coalition politics remained operational. As constituents of the United Front's, regional political parties like the TDP, DMK, AGP came to occupy a very prominent position in national level coalition politics. They played a key role in decision making as well as selection of leadership. However, lack of coordination between the national and regional parties and pressure tactics adopted by the Congress kept the two coalitions from functioning in a proper and well coordinated way. Let us come to the 1998 BJP-led coalition government. This 1998 elections produced a hung parliament, and the BJP was the single largest party with 82 seats, and its alliance, the NDA, got 253 seats. The Congress got 140 seats and came second. The BJP-led alliance was a conglomerate of regional political parties. Though it was led by the national BJP, it had as constituent partners the Shiromani Akali Dal, Shiv Sena, AIADMK, BJD, Lok Shakti, DMK, Janata Party, and other alliance partners. It formed a coalition under the Prime Ministership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. The TDP and Trinamool Congress extended its support from outside. On 19 March 1998, the BJP-led alliance formulated and adopted the National Agenda for Governance, listing the agreed policies, programs, and decisions of this alliance. This coalition government suffered from a number of setbacks because of the problem of coordination and pressure tactics adopted by the alliance partners. The government found it difficult to have a smooth sailing and consequently found it problematic to implement the National Agenda for Governance. By April 1998, there arose serious differences between the alliance and AIADMK. AIADMK decided to leave the government and withdraw its support. Consequently, the coalition got reduced to a majority and it was asked to prove its confidence in the lower house. The president called the government to seek a confidence vote. As I just said, the BJP-led coalition government failed to secure the vote of confidence on 19th April 1999, and very unfortunately, it lost the vote of confidence by just one vote. This led to the resignation and collapse of the government. Let us now come to the working of the NDA, and students, please remember that from 2004 onwards we have seen stable coalitions. In fact, the subsequent 3 coalition governments that were formed, NDA, UPA 1 and 2, were 3 stable governments which could complete 5 years in office. Each of them could complete 5 years in office. The elections for the 13 Lok Sabha were held in September-October 1999. The BJP-led National Democratic Alliance captured 299 seats, sharing 40.48% of the popular votes. The NDA government proved to be stable and completed a 5-year term. A coalition of parties, factions and groups formed the government, and every constituent unit was bent upon drawing maximum political mileage by threatening to withdraw support. But there was a national agenda, no doubt, which was followed more in breach than in observance. In these circumstances, there was no cohesiveness and each was trying to maximize the self-interest of the coalition alliance. The NDA coalition government tried to rule the country by implementing the policies and programs contained in the NDA election manifesto. The NDA was a large-size alliance and witnessed problems of coordination within the alliance partners. Most importantly, AIADMK, PMK, MDMK, Samta Party, BJD, Lok Shakti, TMC, Haryana Vikas Party. The regional parties tried to assert their weight by pushing more and more doles for their states. For example, TDP for Andhra, Trinamool Congress for West Bengal, DMK for Tamil Nadu and Shiromani Akali Dal for Punjab. Each of the coalition partners were trying to get more concessions for their state. Although the coalition government remained in doldrums, the Vajpayee government took some momentous decision about the second Pokhran test to make India a nuclear power station. There was certain moderation in the BJP's policies during this point of time, which can be reflected in the gradual democratization of the religious right. BJP and its allies decided to drop some of the contentious issues, for example, the Ayodhya temple issue, abrogation of Article 370, enactment of a uniform civil code from the NDA's National Agenda for Governance. Priority was given to national security issues. The government continued with the economic reforms embarked during 1991, but definitely with Swadeshi underpinnings. Let us move on to the next coalition, that is UPA, which ruled the country from 2004 to 2009. It was the Congress-led United Progressive Alliance. The general election of 2004 saw a new set of power equations which had no clear precedent in Indian politics. The election witnessed the battle between two dominant parties, Indian National Congress and Bharatiya Janata Party. The Congress, which secured just 145 seats in comparison to BJP's 138, was able to form the government with the help of a strong bloc of regional parties. Some of the constituent partners of the United Progressive Alliance included, of course, Indian National Congress, then there was DMK, MDMK, PMK, Nationalist Congress Party, Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, Telangana Rashtra Samiti, Lok Jan Shakti Party, PDP, CPI, CPIM and the Forward Bloc. The UPA was a coalition of centre and left political parties. Let us come to the features of the first United Progressive Alliance. The alliance formed a government with Manmohan Singh as the Prime Minister and Sonia Gandhi as the chairperson of the UPA. The left front had considerable influence but no responsibilities, as it had not joined the UPA government. It provided external support. Accommodation of the sensitivities of the religious minorities, especially Muslims, and linguistic minorities, especially Tamils, were given importance. On the issue of the Indo-US nuclear deal, the left parties with its 63 members withdrew the support of the UPA government on 23 July 2008. Yet, Dr. Manmohan Singh, playing like a seasoned politician, saved the government with the support of the Samajwadi Party led by Mulayam Singh Yadav and other political parties. This government adopted a common minimum program. A number of important enactments or laws were made during UPA-1 regime. The most prominent of them was the Right to Information Act, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act and the Tribal and Forest Dwellers Rights Act. However, the next elections also saw UPA coming back to power once again and ruling the country from 2009 to 2014. The general elections of 15th Lok Sabha was held in 2009 and UPA secured more seats than the previous UPA regime. While UPA secured 262 seats, NDA secured 159, the left parties 24 seats and others 98 seats. The UP-led coalition government was formed with Dr. Manmohan Singh as the Prime Minister on 22nd May 2009. Indian National Congress performed better than the 2004 elections primarily because of a number of progressive legislations and the clean image of Dr. Manmohan Singh, which plays an important role. However, UPA too also witnessed certain important features which are important in the history of coalition politics in India. First is universally accepted the inevitability of coalition politics along with the ongoing policies of the government, including the administration of economic liberalization since 1991. Secondly, it also showed that the emotive factors are losing grounds in Indian politics as elections are fought on ordinary policy course similar to the other mature political systems. It highlighted the importance of state system in society and paved the way for further state-centric politics among all relative stakeholders. It also gave importance to regional partners in national coalition building exercise. Thus, as long as state remained principal actors and principal providers in the formation of coalition politics, state-specific parties will remain relevant, and this was accepted by the Congress-led UPA. However, UPA suffered from certain weaknesses and setback. For example, the corruption scandal from the 2G spectrum allocation by the Ministry of Telecommunications, the Commonwealth Games, Mumbai Adarsh Housing Society for War Widows involving Congress Union ministers, inflation, India Against Corruption movement led by Anna Hazare in 2011 against the Lokpal bill were some of the weaknesses from which the UPA too suffered, which actually led to the downfall of the UPA in the 2014 elections. In the 2014 elections, we find the NDA coming back to power, but this was a coalition of a different kind. The BJP won 282 of 543 seats in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, the first time a single party won a majority in the last 3 decades. The Congress tally meanwhile declined to just 44 seats, down from 206 in 2009. The BJP victory in 2014 marks the first time since 1984 that a single party has earned a majority of seats in the Lok Sabha, though the BJP decided to form a government along with its coalition allies of the National Democratic Alliance. The consolidation of political power in the hands of a single national party was thought to be virtually impossible in the current context of political fragmentation, but 2014 has shown that this is not the case. 2014 to 2018, electoral politics in India had witnessed significant shifts. In fact, if we look into the politics in India since independence, we find that there has been significant changes noticeable in different coalition governments at the center. Alliances, either pre or post alliances, are the feature of today's India's electoral politics. In the general elections held in 2014, the BJP won 282 seats. It formed a surplus majority NDA government with a pre-electoral coalition. The principal electoral partners were the Shiv Sena, LJP, Telugu Desam Party, Shiromani Akali Dal, taking its majority in the Lok Sabha to 334. However, despite this one-side favourable position of the BJP in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, followed by assembly elections in several states where the BJP won, the party system in India remains a multi-party system, and it is not like the party system that prevailed during the era of Congress dominance from 1952 to 1971. Now, let us try to understand the impact of coalition politics in India and whether we can say that coalition is a thing of the past after the BJP has come to power with a thumping majority in the elections held in 2019. Now, we can definitely say that federal coalitions have played an integrative role by enabling diverse regional political parties to exercise and represent regional issues at the union level. Despite the culture of bargaining and compromise, coalitions have actually enabled the two major parties, BJP and Indian National Congress, to moderate their stance on vital issues to make it acceptable to the alliance partners. Another important point to note is that federal coalitions have allowed for greater representation as well as recognition of diversities, and most importantly given state-based interests space in national decision making. Though the BJP dominance is visible in national politics, and some commentators has called it the second dominant party system, but it is too early, students, to say that coalition in India is a thing of the past. Given the nature of coalitional alliances being formed against the BJP, or the most popular term called Mahagathbandhan, coalition may be an option in the near future for the formation of national governments. Let us summarize what we have studied today. We have studied the concept of coalition governments, the features of coalition governments, the major coalitions formed before 1990s and after 1990s, and the three major coalitions which completed 5 years in office, that was NDA, UPA 1, UPA 2. That is all for today. Thank you.